Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview for a brand new game from Portal Games. It is the third edition to Prêt-à-Porter, which is a 2 to 4 player worker placement set collection style game in the fashion world.
Yeah, this is in the fashion world, and there's going to be a lot of sort of enhancements to this game. The first one that's most obvious is that the artwork is done by Kwanchai Moria.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for this game, I think. From the box to all the components and everything on the table here, it looks just like it should.
But before we get started, do you know what Prêt-à-Porter means?
I do not.
All right, so it means made to wear. So we're not too
Makes
far
sense.
back. Yeah, we're not too far back in history, but pre-clothes on the rack, you'd have to actually go to a tailor to get your clothes made. So eventually, they started just making clothes that could fit everybody. So that's what Prêt-à-Porter means. So you are actually running a fashion company in this game, and that company is going to consist of buildings. It's going to consist of contracts that you need to fulfill. It's going to consist of employees. All these things are going to work together in order to gain you money during 4 different times within the game. You're going to play this over a year, and not a real year, but over 12 calendar months. For every 2 working months, you're going to have a third month that represents an exhibition in one of the many different cities around the world where you're going to exhibit all the different clothing lines that you've developed for those first 2 rounds. You're going to be judged 4 times in the game for a variety of different things, like the quality of the clothing that you have, the PR relations that you have with a variety of different clothing manufacturers, the trends that are going on at that different time, and you're going to convert these into prestige, which eventually turn into victory points.
Yeah, and to do all that, this is going to be built and run by a worker placement game at its heart. You're going to have 3 workers, and you're going to put them on the board in various locations to, like Jeremy said, acquire buildings, employees, contracts, even designs that you're working on, and obviously the materials you need to make those designs.
And with those a limited amount of workers, you really have to synergize the way you place these workers. And you're only going to have 6 worker actions before you have to exhibit your stuff. So it's a very tight game. You're going to have to go out there and get contracts. You're going to have to get employees. You're going to have to get buildings that kind of synergize together in order to kind of extend the number of actions that you get to take every turn by allowing you to do things in locations that you typically aren't located at when you place your worker. So this is a game about trying to make the right decisions at the right time and not going bankrupt while doing so.
Yeah, and a lot of these cards, like we alluded to, kind of work as an engine. Some of them are temporary, some of them are less so. All of them are going to cost you money, and money is pretty tight in this game because you need to spend money, you can go in debt, you're going to be taking out lines of credit, all sorts of things to keep your operations going and hopefully stay in the black.
Yeah, so to start off the game, each player is going to represent one of many different companies. That company is going to come with a player board, and on that player board, you're going to notice a bunch of different locations. Across the bottom, you have a place for 3 employees. You're going to start with 3 generic employees, all of them costing you 1 credits or $1 at the end of every single one of your upkeeps. However, these particular employees can actually be upgraded through the course of the game by getting better employees and slotting them across the bottom. You're allowed to have 3 of those upgraded employees and future ones every time you have a building. So if you have buildings, they can actually hold additional employees throughout the course of the game as well. All of these things are going to have an upkeep cost to them. Those 3 employees, the base ones are going to cost you 3 credits at the very end of each round, meaning you have 3 upkeep. But as you get better and better components to the game, you're going to be tracking that on this. Now, this is just a way to visually understand how much money you're spending at the end of every single one of the rounds. And at the top of the board, it's just a location to put all those contracts that you gather through the course of the game. What's unique about this compared to the originals is one of the big changes in the game is that these contracts are no longer just a one and done type use. All these contracts are double-sided, meaning that the moment you acquire them, they're going to stay on your above your player board until one of the exhibition rounds is over, and then it's going to flip over to its other side, also giving you a benefit, but a lesser degree by which you gain that benefit. The second exhibition that it's shown at, then it goes away.
Yeah, the nice thing about the contracts too is they don't cost anything. The buildings and the employees are going to have some upkeep. The contracts are things that you can utilize for a couple rounds, and then, like Jeremy said, you have to get rid of them. One other thing that goes on your player board is this little token, and this is new as well.
Yep.
This is going to be a token that gives everyone a couple starting designs at the beginning of the game, plus a certain style type that they're sort of in tune with that's going to give them a little bit of a bonus as they make those designs throughout.
So those red tokens that all the players are going to have, those represent different types of clothing. So you have pants, jackets, shirts, shoes, and so forth. Each of those players is going to have one of those that they are good at making. Their company is good at making those type of things, which is going to give them some bonuses during exhibition rounds. There's also 5 different style types, and those are like casual, business, and so forth. These are the collections that you need to sell during the exhibition rounds.
Yeah, when you get to those exhibitions, you can only choose one of those types and put those on display.
Right.
You're not going to go to a fashion show and see sports clothing and evening wear.
Right. Speaking of the different types of clothing, each player is going to start with 2 of these, depending upon that red token that you have. These are the types of clothing. For instance, I'm going to start with here a jacket that is a casual type of wear, and then each of them is going to have 2 different colored materials that you need in order to build that, along with some kind of money that it can provide to you and any other special bonuses that they have. Your goal in this game is to build large collections of things in order to sell them. In order to do so, you're going to have to go down to various different locations around the city in order to source those materials to build those things. Speaking of the game board, there are 9 different locations out in the city that you can place your workers into. These locations range from things like banks, to the places where you get contracts, your buildings, you have your places where you can hire new employees. You have all the different types of clothing that you can buy or try to manufacture. You have 3 locations that allow you to gather those materials. These range from places like your local sourced type of material all the way to your luxury imported goods, and these things will allow you to gain quality points depending upon which one of these areas that you go to. And then you have a location that just allows you to get a variety of different things if you choose not to take any of those other locations. The unique thing about this worker placement board is that each player in turn order is going to be placing their workers one at a time until all the players have placed all 3 of their workers. Now, you are limited by some of these spots by the player count, so this is going to be a first come, first serve. However, you aren't actually fulfilling those workers the moment that you place them. Once all the players are done placing them, then you're going to take those actions from top to bottom and then left to right, depending upon which area you're at, starting with number 1.
Yeah, so let's talk about the locations really briefly. Number 1 is the bank. You're going there because you need money. You're going to get a line of credit, so to speak, and you can take different lines of credit depending on the clothing that you have sort of in your design warehouse.
Yeah.
So if you have 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're going to be able to take different lines of credit, at which point you're going to take that money, so you have some money to spend, but this is going to be something you have to pay off by the end of the game. It's also going to come with some upkeep. As long as that line of credit is sitting in front of you, you're going to have to pay a little bit of upkeep depending on the level each time that upkeep happens.
Next, below that, you have the contracts. There's always 3 contracts that are available. Again, these are the things that are going to stay above your player board and give you bonuses at various different actions or times within the game. Some of them are going to kick in during the upkeep phase. Some of them are going to kick in when very specific locations on the board take place. For instance, this location here, you don't even have to have anybody to go there. If you have this card in front of you, you just get to take the 3 action no matter what.
Exactly. The next one down is the buildings. Like we said earlier, the buildings are going to sit off to the right of your board. Not only are these going to have powers, but they're going to allow you to add more employees than the base 3. But these buildings, again, have a lot of the same iconography, but they're going to have an upgrade ability. So when you get them, you're going to have to pay amount to add them to your board. There's going to be some upkeep to keep them. They're going to have an ability. For instance, this one allows me to draw 1 card down here in this location on top of the deck in addition to the cards that I would be taking that round. But when you upgrade it, you can pay a price, turn it over, and improve that building, so to speak.
Right below that, we have the employees. These are people that you can hire to go right below your player board and cover your base employees. These, of course, are going to have their own upkeep costs and then trigger at various times within the game. I have a model here that's going to trigger during the exhibition round, and it's going to give me 1 free PR. Again, both the buildings and the employees can be upgraded once per turn and flipped over to the other side, giving you a larger benefit, but also additional upkeep to pay for.
And right below that are the designs. These are going to be these cards here. You're going to start with 2 of these, but these come out every round and get refreshed as they're taken. When you go to this location, you're simply going to choose one of the face-up designs, unless you have a building or an employee that allows you to take more, and add them to your tableau. These are going to be cards that you can add materials to and hopefully put on display during the exhibitions.
The 3 locations right below that, 6, 7, and 8, are all locations where you can buy materials. You have a local warehouse, you have the main warehouse, and then you have an imported goods. These allow you to buy either one type of the same type and one type only, or all the different types for more money, and all of them are going to give you different degrees of quality depending upon where you go. Again, these are the square cubes that you're placing on those designs that you have, trying to fulfill them, because you'll need to have those completed by the time that the exhibition round rolls around.
Yeah, and the last place is the sort of preparation area. This is a kind of a catch-all. You can go here and acquire some of the tokens that you're going to want to have during those exhibitions in terms of scoring prestige points. You can also get $5 there without having to take out a line of credit, so that you have a little bit of money to spend.
Again, one of the unique things about this game is that these locations, once you go to them, it is a first come, first serve, meaning that these decks of cards aren't going to refill at the top until the round is over. So you want to go to these locations first, you want to grab those pieces before other players do so. And remember, again, all of these cards have some kind of combination, so there's times in the game where I may not place someone at the 4 location, but if I have a worker or if I have a building that allows me to take an action there, I can still do that. And that's what this game really focuses on, being able to do the most that you can with only 3 workers, because that's not a lot of workers to take as many actions as you want to take within this game.
No, and like we said at the very beginning, you're placing your workers and you're not taking those actions. So like Jeremy said, that first come, first serve really comes into play, because you might place here second or third in a 4-player game,
Yeah.
and you might not get at all what you wanted to begin with.
Right. Once all the players have done that and taken all the actions, you're going to do an upkeep phase. That's where you're going to look at your board and see how much you have to pay back for all the employees you have and all the buildings that you have. You have to pay that back to the bank. If you don't have the amount of money to pay it back to the bank, you have to take a loan. Now, a loan is different than the credit cards that you see down here. A loan is going to give you $20 to pay back any kind of upkeep that you may have, but it does have a cost of $28 in order to pay it back by the end of the game, and $2 upkeep every round that you don't pay that back off. Now, what's unique about this game as well from the second edition is if you don't pay back all of your credit cards and you don't pay back all of your loans by the end of the game, it doesn't matter if you have 100 more points than the next player, you're out of the game. You have to pay back your loans and your credit cards in this game to even be considered to win the game.
Yeah, so you could maybe potentially rush to get some points early in some of the first parts of the game, build up a bunch of loans, and then spend the last portion of the game trying to pay those off.
So the meat of the game comes from the 4 different exhibition rounds that come in month 3, 6, 9, and then 12. Each of these rounds is going to have a number of different cities that you have to exhibit your collection in. For instance, in the first exhibit, you're only going to have 1 city, and that's because you see these lines here that mark up to the area. In the 6th round, you're going to have 2, and then 3, and then 4. They're also going to have a number of different things that you have to pay attention to. For instance, in the very first city, you have trend, PR, quality, and the number of cards in that collection. Each of these is going to be allow you to change those collections into prestige, which ultimately give you victory points. How that's done is at the start of an exhibit, each player is going to pull aside all of their completed collections that they want to showcase. Now the trick here is they have to be of the same type. So if you have shoes in one of them or casual in one of them and you have business in another, you can't mix those together. They have to be all business or all casual or something of that sort in order to show in that collection. When you do so, you just push those off to the side, and then you start going through each of these in order, getting prestige tokens for where you place in that order.
Yeah, so for instance, in this case, the first thing that's going to be looked at is trends. Trend tokens are going to be collected in a variety of different ways. There's some building cards that just give you, some contracts that just give you trend points. And if you have your collection that you're putting on display that sort of synergizes with your specific type of collection that you're good at, you're going to score some trend points too. These prestige points that are going to be converted into are based on player count, but you're going to get a certain amount for first place, a certain amount for second place, and so on with PR, quality, and then the size of your collection in this case.
Right. Once that is done, you're going to take all of those prestige tokens that you have, which are these stars here, and you're going to multiply that by the number of cards that you had in your collection. So say, for instance, you were able to collect 10 of those stars, and you have 2 cards in your collection. You multiply 10 times 2, and you gain $20. Also, you're going to sell off all the things in your collection. So if I sold just this purple card, I could get $21 from this. This is going to go back to the supply. All the cubes that you had on there are going to go back to their supply, and you're going to gain that money. All the tokens that you used and showcased in that round, being your quality, your PR, and your trends, are going to go back to the supply. However, those prestige stars that you have will stay with you until the next exhibition round, which will also be converted into straight victory points depending upon the player count. So there's this cycle that you have to go through of being able to show the right kinds of cards, the right collection to match the right type of exhibit that's going on in those areas, and then converting that into money that you have to use to fuel your next round, and then convert those into victory points. So there's this cycle that you have to go through every single round in order to stay in the game.
Yeah, and you're going to basically be doing this over 12 rounds broken up into 4 different quarters of the year, so to speak.
Yep.
With a exhibition happening at the end of each of those quarters.
And at the end of the game, you're going to tally up all the victory points that you've collected around the outside edge of the board, plus all of your money. Money is hugely important in this game, so all of your money is a 1-to-1 ratio. You're going to add those together, and the player with the most points wins. So that is Prêt-à-Porter, guys, from Portal Games. If you have any questions about the game, make them in their comments, or make them in the comments below. Super excited that we have another fashion game, this and Rococo, which is one of our favorites. And make sure you check out their Kickstarter for all the final components we should have said earlier, but this is all prototype that you see here. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.